It is round two for hearings on gun-related legislation at the state capitol. Thanks for joining us. I'm Alexandra Renslow.
And I'm Shannon Slatton. The Senate Judiciary Committee held its first of 3 hearings this afternoon. Renee Bonneau was there. She's live at the Capitol with more. Renee?
Shannon and Alex, when we arrived at the hearing room just after 10 o'clock this morning, there was already a line to get in outside the door. However, there was a slight change to the tone of this hearing as opposed to the House hearings held earlier this month. That's because there's one particularly contentious piece of legislation that senators say they will not touch, and that's a proposed ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. More than an hour before the Senate Judiciary hearing, a line of maroon shirts and yellow buttons snaked around room 15 at the state capitol. Members of the Minnesota Gun Owners Civil Rights Alliance and other gun rights advocates hoping for front row seats.
They're just trying to add one more thing that is not necessary.
Curtis Anderson was first in line. He hoped the large presence of gun legislation opponents would get his message across.
If you've made laws and they're not working, then adding more laws isn't going to be the answer to that. You need to fix the laws you have, enforce them, and then you won't need this.
Standing among this group in the minority was Joyce Anderson.
We have a right. We have a right to be free from gun violence.
She says she supports legislation aimed at keeping guns out of the wrong hands, but says state Senate proposals don't go far enough.
I think the Senate is actually copping out, not going for smaller clips and banning assault rifles, but the very least is to have universal background checks for everyone.
Senator Ron Latz, who heads the Senate Judiciary Committee, said banning weapons would best be dealt with on a federal level. Plus, he said, a majority of the state's gun crimes have nothing to do with assault-style rifles.
The real epidemic of gun violence is in the single shot, the 1 in 2 individuals that get killed by a handgun. Per time. And so that's where we really need to focus our efforts.
He said universal background checks and laws that keep guns away from parties such as the mentally ill and juvenile offenders will solve what he calls the real epidemic in Minnesota.
That's got 85% public support in Minnesota. It's got broad consensus among law enforcement, both the chiefs of public safety and the rank and file police officers. And that, I think, is achievable.
At least one of the bills up for discussion was heard without opposition today. That would keep guns away from domestic violent offenders and juvenile offenders, and it would punish people from giving guns to people that shouldn't have them, such as felons. Alex and Shannon, the general public will have a chance to weigh in this evening at 6 o'clock in another hearing. It's slated to last about 3 hours, but Senator Latz says he wouldn't be surprised if it stretched to 4. We're live at the Capitol. Renee Bonneau, 12 News.
All right. Thank you, Renee.